Today on the Brandon Says podcast, we're going to be discussing the Lewitt LCT1040, and then I'll be answering a couple of your questions, so go ahead and stick around. Now, before we talk about what I've been testing, I do want to touch on something very briefly. First off, there was no news, so we are not covering any news. Secondly, yesterday when I was in the Podcastage voice chat, AdBlockers came up and somebody requested that I discuss them publicly. I'm not going to go too into depth. I am just going to explain something very briefly and very bluntly. If you use an ad blocker, the content creator does not receive any kind of monetary compensation for the advertisement that you did not see or hear. That is not how the system works. You need to actually see or hear or be presented with the advertisement for the content creator to be paid for it. Otherwise, there would be a massive lawsuit against YouTube for charging people for services that they did not receive. YouTube has to successfully present you with an advertisement in order to charge a customer for presenting somebody with that advertisement. Otherwise, there would be massive lawsuits. That's the bottom line. If you use an ad blocker, you are taking away monetary compensation from the content creator. I'm not saying that's wrong or bad. I know plenty of people do it. You do whatever you want, but that's what's happening. If you use an ad blocker, that content creator is not earning money from advertisements that are displayed on their content. Simple as that. Just wanted to point that out because apparently some people were confused by it. They thought if they use an ad blocker, the content creator somehow still gets money. So if you want to avoid ads, I highly recommend YouTube Premium. Best decision I've made. I have not looked back since I signed up in 2016, whenever it was YouTube Red. Signed up almost day one, love it. Or Patreon, or memberships, or super thanks, or any of those things. Great ways to compensate a content creator if you see value in their content and you want to use an ad blocker. No sweat off my sack, there's plenty of people who don't use it. Okay. But now let's talk about what I've been testing, and I am going to say the thing that I seem to say every single week now. You have been listening to it! That's right. This is the Lewitt LCT1040, and gosh darn it, this is an expensive boy. This costs $3,500. Yikes, that's a lot of money. And full disclosure, sent to me by Lewitt for a review. I will be doing that in a couple of weeks. I have been using this for about a month and a half at this point and really been putting it through its paces and trying to find out exactly where it sits, what it excels at, what it falls short at, all that stuff, and I will be including all of that in my review. Also, Lewitt is not compensating me for this, and they are not requiring me to include it in any videos. I just like actually using the microphones that I am reviewing, hence why it is in this podcast, hence why I made a cover song with it, hence why I have read a bunch of Grimm's fairy tales with it, because I want to get real-world experience with it. But what is the story behind this microphone? It is a FET and tube microphone. It is multi-pattern. And the thing that's special about the tube setting on this is it has multiple voicings. It has clear, warm, dark, and saturated. And then it allows you to mix between the FET circuit and the tube circuit. So you can get a mix of the two. If you want a little bit of that warmth, you can get the tube setting. If you want a lot more clarity, you can go to the FET side. I do think those are the two biggest selling points for this microphone. Something else that's really cool that I hadn't tried until today, I have my power supply for the microphone back there on my isolation cab, and then I'm running XLR to XLR cable to the controller that is sitting on my desk. I have the controller over here, but the power supply over there. And apparently you can use a 150 meter cable, and the reason I think that's important, probably going to be for orchestral recordings. That's what I was trying to think of, where you're sitting at the back of the concert hall, you're running XLR cables up to the power supplies on stage, where you got the microphones. I think that's where that's going to come into play, but I really enjoy this. As far as the settings that I have landed on where I think it really just sings for me, I like it on the tube dark mode, which is pretty neutral, rolls off a bit of the top end. And then as far as the mix dial, I have it set 75% tube and 25% FET. So I get a little bit of that crispness up top from the FET circuit. Let me go ahead and roll it back all the way to tube. And now I am 100% tube. You can hear a little bit of that tss, that articulation gets rolled off. Let me go back to 25%. Just ever so slight amount of that articulation comes back in. I do not have it linear. I have a 40 hertz high pass filter, and then I am on the supercardioid polar pattern. That's the sweet spot for me. That's what I have really just fallen in love with. Warm is also really great. The other two, I'm sure people will love them, but I like the darker sound of a tube microphone, the warmer sound, not as bright and clear and hyper articulate. But I like that you can get a little bit of that by rolling in a little bit of the FET circuit. That's what I've been testing. Let me know what you think of it. It's a pretty fascinating microphone. And I was thinking about this. I was trying to determine, I talked about this in my Discord, but I was trying to determine why this was so exciting when it came out. And the only thing that I can think of, yeah, cool, new features, all that stuff, but it's not very frequent that we get a new flagship microphone at this level. The other ones that are out there, what do we have? We have the Mojave MA1000. We have the Audio-Technica AT5040, I think. That has the rectangular capsule, just bonkers stuff. We have the U87. We have the Lewitt LCT1040. We have the AKG CV12 or C12, whatever that one's called. It's not very common that we get a microphone at this level. The lower end stuff, the stuff $1,000 and lower, seems like that comes out every 10, 15 years, which is perfect longevity for a microphone of that price. But at this price point, it seems like these stick around as long as they are high enough quality to last. They seem to last 30, 40, 50 years. So we'll see how this holds up, but I think that's what's so exciting about this release. We have the U87, the AKG C12, the U47, the U67. Can you tell I know a lot of Neumann microphones, and that's about it. You do have a lot of flagship microphones, but they don't come out very often. So I think that's what's interesting about it, and I will love to see how this holds up over the coming decades, because it better last for decades given the $3,500 price point. All right, let's go ahead and jump to what you had to say. First comment comes from Tim Fenton, and he says, those Shure Lav Mics use the TA4F connector. Shure makes a TA4F to XLR adapter to run them in other scenarios. I've run the Shure Lavs that I have that came with body packs 8+ years ago, connected to the XLR adapter, and run into the XLR input on video cameras with no issues. Tim, thank you very much for the comment, and there you go to, I can't remember who asked that last week. I appreciate the video submission last week, and I appreciate Tim sharing his experience and expertise. Something that I do have a question about. Does your camera allow you to switch between 48 volts and plug-in power of 3 to 5 volts? Does it allow that switch to happen, or are you running 48 volts phantom power through the XLR jack or through the XLR adapter converter? And does that XLR to TA4F converter convert 48 volts to plug-in power? That's what I'm curious about, because if it doesn't do that conversion, there still may be an issue. And I know a lot of cameras probably are designed to allow for lavalier microphones, so they would probably have a plug-in power option. Let me know in the comments down below, Tim. Thank you very much for your input. And there's a bit of resolution to a question from last week that I did not have an answer to. Thank you very much. Next, we have a comment from Rob, and he says, Shorts idea for you. A short for each Microview's box throw. The box throw is one of the most distinctive parts of your channel. Should translate well to shorts, and with the right content before/after the box throw, could attract people to your channel for the right reasons. Just a thought. Rob, thank you very much for the comment and the great suggestion. I do have a confession to make. I have spoken down on TikTok for years at this point, it seems like. Maybe it's just in my head that I've been speaking down about them, but I have a TikTok account. I do. I'm admitting it. TikTok.com/@podcastage. I'm embarrassed. I am truly deeply embarrassed. But around the end of 2020 or the beginning of 2021, I did exactly this. All the videos on my TikTok are 3 to 5 seconds of me just throwing a box, and I very rarely say anything. I watched one of them where I said, oh, the box went behind the door. That's the entire TikTok, and then I deleted it off of my old phone. So I did it for a little bit, and you're probably right. I should be doing this, and I will admit, my box throwing is the best content on TikTok. I don't know why it didn't blow up and become viral. TikTok hates me, apparently. But thank you very much for the suggestion. I should do some kind of consolidated 1-minute pieces of content, of coverage of the mics that I'm reviewing. That would be helpful. Thank you very much, Rob. Next, we have a comment from Trashkov, and they say, I really don't like the way that your Dynacaster sounds. It sounds like it's almost broken? There's like a hollow reverberation that it adds to your voice. I had to turn the video down because I can't stand it. Trashkov, you are not alone. I have had a number of people suggest that my Dynacaster was busted. I recorded an audiobook chapter with it, and yes, it had some kind of hollow reverberation in it, as you put it. The way that I heard it was some kind of weird phase cancellation going on, which could be my voice bouncing around on the inside and canceling itself out with phase. I don't know exactly what was wrong with it, but it didn't sound right. I contacted SE. They said they would be sending a new one because I don't know if they even listened to the audio samples I sent, but I said, I think this is busted. They said they would send a new one. I will be able to compare the new one versus the one that I believe to be broken and see if it is in fact broken, or if that is how it actually sounds. I hope that's not how it actually sounds. Somebody did bring a good point up, though. They brought up a good point. They said, I guess this means that SE does not screen the microphones that they're sending to reviewers. And that's a very good point. I think that's great that they are not screening the microphones to try to get the ones that are the best of the bunch and send to reviewers. They are probably just, they believe in their product and say, okay, yeah, just send one from the warehouse. They're good enough. But if you know anything about the large launches, you know there will always be lemons in the batch, and seems like I may have got one, or at least I hope that it's a lemon that I got, because, uh-oh. All right. Thank you very much, Trashkov. Appreciate you. I will report back once I get a new SE Dynacaster. And the last comment comes from Dimebag Darren, Canadian Coins. He says, review the PreSonus Revelator IO24. Are you triggered yet? Thank you very much for the comment, Dimebag Darren. I appreciate you. Am I triggered? No. You can leave comments on every single one of my videos. You can contact me in every single live chat that I'm in and say, hey, review the Revelator IO24. By the way, that's one of the worst things ever. If you're in somebody's voice chat and then people start talking to you, it makes me feel like a huge dick. Because I'm there to watch the people who are streaming. And then if somebody starts talking to me, I feel like a massive dick because I'm unintentionally taking attention away from the streamer. And I know they don't like it. They don't like that at all. So I feel like a dick when that happens. You can do that, but I'm probably not going to review it. I have it in my other room, but the reason why I have not reviewed it is I got one of the units from the initial faulty bunch. There were a lot of issues with them initially, and a lot of people were complaining about them. One of the biggest issues was an extremely noisy headphone amp. I think there was also bleed between the left and the right channel, something like that. There may have been issues. I think there were also issues with the microphone preamps being a bit noisy. It was just quite a rough launch, and I spoke to PreSonus. I don't even know how I got it. I couldn't find an invoice. I don't know where I bought it from. PreSonus said they didn't send it to me, so I don't know how I ended up with it. Apparently, I paid somebody for it, and it's broken, but I lost interest after that, and they said, yeah, send it in. We'll give you a new updated version that doesn't have those issues, and I just haven't even done it. I think Dark Corner Studios is going to do it, and he was in some kind of competition with me that I didn't even know about, saying, I'm going to beat Bandrew to it. Yeah, you are, because I don't feel like reviewing it. You are going to beat me. Okay. I think that's it for what you had to say. Let's jump to my favorite part of the show, the Ask Bandrew segment. Alrighty, welcome back to the Ask Bandrew segment. If you have questions, go to askbandrew.com. Askbandrew.com. There are instructions on how to send in audio, video, and text-based questions. I do prefer audio and video. On that note, I need to check, SpeakPipe. I haven't checked that in a couple of months. Uh-oh. I apologize if you sent one in. I'm still working through 2021. I'm almost at the end. But you can send in audio and video. I do prefer those because then I don't have to read. But first, we do have one that I have to read. Comes from Ingmar. And they say, "Hey, Bandrew, have you ever used or tested a Microtech Gefell M930 microphone? They are very popular in German radio station. They are very small and, if you can believe it, assembled by hand in Germany. Thank you for all the great content. Ingmar from Germany, long-time listener, second time asking a question, proud owner of a new SM7B. Ingmar, congratulations on the SM7B. I'm wondering, is Ingmar a very common German name? Because that name's very familiar to me because of Ingmar Bergman. I don't think I've seen any of their movies, but that's a very famous name. Do you get a lot of comparisons to Ingmar Bergman? Or is Ingmar a very common German name? Let me know. I don't know why I find that fascinating, but I do. So just let me know in the comments if that is a common name and if you get a lot of people asking you about the films that you made. Anyway, I have heard of Microtech Gefell, and I am sure that you have seen that I just did a review of the UMT70S. It is actually hidden right down here. And that microphone sounds great. Makes me very curious to try out the other Microtech Gefell microphones. But I'm going to go very inside baseball here, very inside baseball for anybody who cares about YouTube. There is always a predicament that I have when I'm choosing the gear that I want to review. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place when I am trying to decide, okay, here's the gear that I want to review, and here's the gear that I believe will perform the best. If you look at my Microtech Gefell UMT70S review, you will see that it did not necessarily perform very well. And the issue there is, number one, I spent $1,600 on a microphone that's not really doing much in terms of getting views, and that's a bummer because that's a lot of money to spend for not a lot of interest. And then secondly, when a video does bomb, like, I won't say it bombed, but it didn't do as well as I was hoping. When that's the case, that informs the YouTube algorithm that people don't like the videos that I'm making, and the future videos that I do produce, they will distribute that even less. So to summarize, I'm stuck in this situation where I say, I'm interested in this microphone. Do I want to spend $1,600 of my money to buy this microphone to review it when nobody is going to watch it and I'm not going to earn my money back? In some instances, absolutely I will do that. And I'm not saying I won't review that microphone because I am fascinated by it. But it is undeniable that Gefell microphones are lesser known, and that means that fewer people will watch that video, meaning that video's lesser performance will harm my channel's distribution as a whole, also meaning I am less likely to recuperate the money that I spent buying the microphone for that review. So I'm not saying I will not review them, but will I review them soon? Probably not, because I do have to spread out microphones like that where it is a $1,000, $2,000 money pit that I just throw money into and say, okay, yeah, I'm not going to get that back. And I'm fine doing that. That's why I earn this money. I don't really pay myself much money, so it's just, okay, yeah, I'll buy that, but I don't want to kill the channel in the process of burning money. That's just a double-edged sword that I don't want to stab myself in the stomach like that. So eventually, yes, because that's a fascinating microphone. Secondly, we have a voice submission, so go ahead and take it away, good sir. I don't think I have your name. Take it away.
Hello, Bandrew. Thank you for all your videos. It's helped me lose more money, learn about audio gear and get invested in the vast world of audio gear. Keep up what you're doing. About a year and a half ago, you investigated an issue in OBS which would cause audio to clip at -6 dB due to the way OBS downmixes stereo mic signals to mono. I was curious if this problem still exists because I'm not very good at hearing minor clipping in audio, although I can hear heavily distorted and clipping audio. Another question I had was about analog limiters. While I don't require one, I don't actually know about how one would get an analog limiter. What, if any, are some affordable options for analog limiters? Is there any benefit in them over a digital limiter? I'd also like some feedback on the audio quality of this recording. I am on the Motu M2 with an SEV Savian about 3 inches from my mouth with the gain set to about 130. I'm in a completely untreated university dorm because I couldn't be bothered to set up treatment for a dorm I'm going to be in for less than a year that I only use for voice chats really with my friends. I have some basic post-processing with some noise reduction in OBS, gain, compression, and limiter. I'm planning to incorporate a high-pass filter soon, but I didn't want to do too much in terms of my first stab at post-processing. Once again, thanks for all you do, and I'll answer my questions. Bye.
Thank you very much for the voice submission. The first question that you ask, does OBS still clip at -6 decibels when down mixed to mono? I have not checked, but I believe so, because the reason that it clips at -6 decibels is due to pan law compensation. Now, I am going to jump to something that I recorded in the past with my DAW pulled up and some very annoying sine waves and do a demonstration so you can see and hear why that's the case. And here we are in my DAW. Sorry if you were just listening. I will try to describe it. In my DAW, I have a 1000 hertz sine wave, and yes, this is going to get annoying. I have duplicated that sine wave onto 2 tracks to simulate a single stereo track, panned hard left and hard right, and let me go ahead and play that for you. If you look at the meter, we were hitting -10 decibels. Now I have simulated down mixing that stereo track to a mono track if we did not have any kind of pan law compensation. So let me go ahead and play the panned version, and then you will hear a bump in volume, and that will be the simulated mono mixdown of that. And if you could see the meters, if you were actually watching the video, you will see that the level jumped from -10 decibels to -7 decibels. So by duplicating that signal in the center channel, we see an increase in level of 3 decibels, which is doubling in loudness. Did you hear that, Alan, aka Sound Speeds? I got it right. I am big brain today. Okay. The way that we would compensate for that is decreasing both channels, which are now centered, by 3 decibels. So let me go ahead and play the stereo track and then the mono mixdown with a -3 dB gain adjustment on both tracks. And if you could see the meter, again, sorry if you are just listening, the level went from -10 decibels to -10 decibels. And the last thing that I want to demonstrate is how a stereo audio track with audio only on one channel is affected using the pan law compensation when we down mix to mono, and this will answer the question. Let's go ahead and play and look at the meters. So what we saw there is when we had the stereo track, we were hitting -10 decibels, but then when we downmixed to mono and decreased both the left and the right channel by -3 decibels, we ultimately ended up with a mono track which was -16 dB. So what do we find there? A decrease in level of -6 decibels, which is exactly what we should expect based on our findings in OBS. I hope that was a helpful demonstration, and I am sure that Alan from Sound Speeds is going to tell me that I'm wrong. And please do, because I have been putting my foot in my mouth in my foot, nonstop. So correct me if I'm wrong. Secondly, you ask for an analog limiter. This is difficult. Last week, I talked to some gentleman who was asking about getting outboard compressors, and the issue there is you can't run directly into a compressor. You need to run into a preamp and then run out of the preamp into the compressor, then out of the compressor into your interface, or get an interface that has an insert option. As far as analog limiters, 500 series racks, or you're going to be looking at some DBX stuff. I think DBX has a pretty affordable analog limiter, but you would need an outboard preamp as well, or an interface with an insert. But I think the best bet would be something like a 500 series rack, where you can get a pretty affordable preamp and a pretty affordable analog limiter. Really, it's not going to be cheap. But as far as the difference between analog and digital limiters, my understanding is digital limiters, it essentially records a safety track that's negative 10 dB or negative 20 dB quieter, and then when you exceed 0 decibels, it shifts over to that safety track. And that will also increase your noise floor. An analog limiter, my understanding, should not increase your noise floor because it just says, okay, don't let anything go above this level. If you do use makeup gain on the limiter, though, you would be increasing your noise floor just the same as you would on a compressor where you're using makeup gain. You would be increasing the noise floor. It's just the difference between a compressor and a limiter. A compressor will not have an infinity to 1 ratio, which a limiter will have. But with an analog limiter, that will eliminate the possibility of you clipping and distorting or overdriving the analog to digital converter in your interface or whatever kind of converter you are using. The last thing you ask are thoughts on your audio processing. I mean this with the utmost respect. I believe you have a lot of work to do. First, I do hear some clicking, some clipping artifacts, something funky going on. It doesn't sound the same as compressing a clipped signal, but it does sound like you are clipping a little bit, or there's something else funky going on. And the second thing, the noise removal is way too aggressive. It makes you sound like you are underwater, so you need to roll that back big time. But the good news, you are halfway there, because the best way to understand what plugins do, what effects do, crank them all the way up and learn what it's actually doing. Make the impact on your audio as aggressive as you possibly can, and now you know what those plugins do. So you're halfway there. Now you can just roll them back to be more tame, more subtle, and you'll be well on your way. But I think you need to work on your gain staging because it does sound like you're clipping or something funky's going on, and your noise reduction just way too aggressive. Thank you very much for the voice submission. I hope that was helpful for you, and best of luck on your recording journey. Next, we have an email from Abdul. They say, Dear Bandrew, I wanted to know what microphone I should buy for a completely untreated room which picks up the sounds of cars passing by and honking and everything in that area. I don't know if you will see this or not. I've been a subscriber for 3 years. Over the years, I've seen you recommend dynamic mics to many people with the same sort of issues. But the thing is that most of the mics you recommend are handheld type microphones, which I'm not very keen on. I know that one shouldn't be buying a microphone for its looks, but I need something that has the broadcast microphone looks, sounds good, and stays well within the budget of around $100 to $150. Oh, and I use the microphone to record hip-hop vocals. My voice is similar to yours. In hopes that you see this. Okay, in my tests, I did a roundup of the broadcast dynamic microphones that were available a couple of years ago. The best background noise rejection that I found was the Rode Procaster, but that is out of your budget. You said max 150. Doesn't fit. So the other options that I can think of that are broadcast dynamics, MXL BCD1, I don't like it. Art D7, I don't like it. Golden Age Project D2, I don't like it. Audio Technica AT2040, I don't like it. Zoom ZDM1, it's tolerable for the price. Polson Mic Pod, it's fine. Rode Pod Mic, it's fine. Presonus PD70, it's fine. I know you want something that looks cool. I know you do. But I believe that you will get the best sounding recordings with something like the SEV7, SE Electronics SEV7, $117, sounds amazing. It will give you a more neutral sound profile, more neutral, it's not going to color the audio too much, or the Sennheiser E835. If you want a much brighter sound, much more articulate and detailed sound, go for the E835 $100 handheld dynamic, or if you want that more vintage, classic 58 sound, go for the Shure SM58, $100. All of those would be much more likely to give you the best sound quality over any of those $100 to $150 broadcast-looking dynamic mics. That's my opinion. I know you don't want to hear it. I know you want me to say, I've been keeping this a secret. Here's a little secret microphone, best sounding broadcast dynamic microphone. It doesn't exist. The ones that sound the best in that price range are the SEV7 and E835 and SM58. Even if some of those aren't my favorite personally, I don't like the E835. I think it's too bright. But people love it because it does give you that articulation, that brightness, that sound that a lot of people are looking for. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I think you should go that route because you should get the microphone that sounds best for your application. And I think one of those will be better than any of those broadcasty-looking dynamic mics. Best of luck. I hope you're not too ticked off with that answer. Hey, I answered the question. I answered it. That should be good enough. If you don't like the answer, then buzz off. Why did I spit on my desk? I didn't mean to. I'm totally just insulting this guy. He's asking a fair question. I'm just being a dick. I apologize. Best of luck on your recording. And the last question is a voice submission from C. Take it away, C.
Hi, Bandrew. I think I have to explain this as soon as possible because it's a problem that is very easily noticeable. This microphone I'm using is a very bad microphone, very cheap. I don't even know the brand of it. It's called Trust. No one knows this brand. It's a random brand, probably pirated. It's terrible, and it has this awful background noise, and I think you can remove it, but I don't know how. If you look at a equalizer, you will see it's very focused on the high frequencies, and it shifts, but a notch filter will not take care of it, and I don't know how to get rid of it. And I need to be clear, I have a better microphone. I'm just doing this because I'm crazy. This is absurd. This microphone is terrible. I'm just doing this because I'm crazy. There's no reason to do this. I know. But I want to know if it is possible to remove this background noise. Thank you for listening already, and greetings from Brazil.
All right. This is a fun one. And this is another situation where I have recorded my DAW. So let us jump back in time. Let me do it. I haven't done this in a while. My fingers are feeling a little fuzzy. Okay, the first thing that I want to address is why a notch filter is not removing that. If you just listen to it, you can hear that interference fluctuates in frequency quite a bit. In order to demonstrate this, I have Isotope Insight 2 pulled up. I am going to go ahead and loop just a section of the interference, and you can look at the spectrogram so you can see that this is occurring over a large amount of frequencies as opposed to a single frequency that you could just notch out. So that is occurring between 2,000 and 7,000 hertz. That's a wide frequency range that you can't really just notch out. So my initial thought was Spectral Denoise, which is an RX7 plugin. The reason this came to mind is it has a learn button. So you can loop a certain section of your audio and train the plugin of the noise profile and use that to remove that noise from the rest of the audio. Let me go ahead and click Learn, and I will loop this again. And that generates a profile of your noise. And if you're watching the video version of this, you can see the graph. This is not just a singular frequency. This spans the majority of the frequency response graph up to 9 kilohertz. But now that we've trained the plugin of your noise profile, let's go ahead and see how well it does at removing that.
Hi, Bandrew. I think I have to explain this as soon as possible because it's a problem that is very easily noticeable. This microphone I'm using is a very bad microphone.
So even with an incredibly powerful plugin like RX7 Spectral Denoise, you're not able to get rid of all of that background interference. And I was being extremely aggressive with the settings to a point that I would never use this plugin because, as you could hear, it destroys the quality of your voice. It makes you sound underwater. And even when I'm being that aggressive, that noise is still making it through. And just out of curiosity, I wanted to see how aggressive I had to get with this plugin to actually get rid of that noise. I had to turn it all the way up in terms of reduction, 40 decibels of reduction. Let me play it now so you can hear how degraded the vocal recording is now.
Has this awful background noise, and I think you can remove it.
The noise is no longer there, but the voice is barely there as well. Let me go ahead and play it, and I will bypass the plugin so you can hear the noise, and then with the noise removed.
But I don't know how. If you look at a equalizer, you will see
it's even still coming through in certain parts. So that was my solution, but it's not a good solution. The only real solution here is don't have that in the recording. That is honestly the only solution to this. This goes back to the make your audio as good as you possibly can before you hit record. And that's the golden rule. Hopefully that was helpful. Alrighty, there it is. That's my conclusion. I think the golden rule will forever apply. If you want an amazing sounding recording, step 1, get amazing sounding audio before you hit record. You cannot polish a turd. All you'll end up with is a shiny turd and now your hands smell like shit. That's been my motto for years. I don't think it's catching on because it's not very catchy, but I love the saying. So I wish you the best of luck, and don't use that microphone. Use your better sounding microphone, please, because it's... Okay, hang on. Use that for special effects. That sounded like the aliens in Signs. I just rewatched that a couple of weeks ago, and it reminded me of that. You could be a sound effects designer person. There you go. Save that for applications like that, but do not use that to speak to people, please. Please, save everybody. Do not use it. Okay. And to conclude this week's episode, we are doing it again. We are jumping back to movies of the week because I have just been watching way too many movies. First one up, The Towering Inferno from 1974. I finally got around to watching this, and I have no idea why. I thought this was a comedy movie. Nope, could not be farther from the truth. This is very far from a comedy film. There is a lot of death and a lot of terror and a lot of inferno. It's about fires and skyscrapers. I don't like heights. I hate heights. They make me nervous. This film plays on that extremely well. If you don't like heights, your palms are going to be sweaty during many a scene in this film. It's a really fascinating movie because I don't know about you. I never really considered fighting fires in skyscrapers. But when the firemen show up, they say, we can't effectively fight a fire on anything above floor 7, but you just keep building them higher. And I had a fear of heights before, and now I have a new developed fear of going into skyscrapers because what happens when the building catches on fire? Thanks a lot. But this has the always wonderful Faye Dunaway in it. She's wonderful. It has the King of Cool, Steve McQueen. It has, what's his name, Paul Newman. I need to see Paul Newman's other films, but if you are looking for, it's a slow burn, no pun intended. Yeah, it's about fire, but it's a slow burn. It's nearly 3 hours long. I was not expecting that. Really a well-done thriller film, disaster movie, worth a watch. Second movie, this one's special for me. Mallrats from 1995. This is the 25th anniversary Arrow Films release. This movie is probably my most viewed film of all time. This is like my comfort food. If it's not my most watched, it's one of my most watched because I will just put this on and fall asleep to it. I will skip the intro scene because I don't like it. I like when Jason Lee and Shannon Doherty are in bed together and she's just punching him in the head. Get up, get up, get up. You're a loser. I break up with you. And then when they go to the mall. Is it a great film? No. Is the acting good in it? Not by a lot of people. But Jason Lee is phenomenal. He is a natural in this. As soon as I saw this when I was a teenager, I thought, wow, that guy's really cool. And he plays it off perfectly. He plays the role exactly as it needs to be played. And you could tell that he was destined to be a star. It's just about a couple of guys who got dumped by their girlfriends and they want to win them back. And they go to the mall and they find their girlfriends there and try to win them back. And Jay and Silent Bob are in it. And you have Ethan Suplee when he was probably 300 pounds heavier than he is right now. And he just wants to see the secret picture. It's a schooner, not a sailboat. A schooner is a sailboat. And I feel Ethan's pain. I'm opening up to you. I share Ethan's pain because I too am unable to see those magic eye hidden picture things. I think the reason is I'm colorblind. I don't think colorblind people can see those. My brother and sister had them growing up. I could never see them. They said, here's a book. Look at it. You can't see the picture? No, I can't. No, I can't. My eyes are broken. My eyes are stupid. So, Ethan, I feel your pain. I would go to a mall with my lunch, my bag of soda, and just hang out staring at the magic eye all day long, too. So those are my two movies. The Towering Inferno, 1974 disaster film, and one of the most important films in my life, 1995 Mallrats. Kevin Smith, thank you for making this movie. I know it bombed when it came out. The introduction to this, I'm just rambling at this point. The introduction to this is amazing because he talked about how it did bomb and he thought that it was the end. He thought his career was over, but then 10 years later, it caught on and people fell in love with it. And you may make something that people don't like right now. Who knows if it's going to catch on eventually. So just make whatever the hell you want to make that you are passionate about, and maybe it'll catch on. Kevin Smith is one of the most inspiring people. May not agree with him on everything, but one of the best things I've ever heard him say is, if you think you can make a better film than me, then make it. I will be one of the first to buy a ticket and watch it. Because he just wants good art to exist, and that's amazing. It's brilliant. Okay, I'm done. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Next Sunday, I will talk at you. Again, Lewitt LCT1040. Let me know what you thought of it. Dark mode. Do we want to go through the modes? No, we won't. I did that go to the Bandrew Scott channel, youtube.com/Bandrew Scott. The Valiant Little Taylor. I did that on that video. I go through all the different modes so you can hear them. I'm not going to do it here. All right, I will talk to you next week. I love you. Bye-bye.
This has been a Geeks Rising production. Your executive producer is Bandrew Scott. For more information, head over to www.geeksrising.com.